In Washington, D.C. is a modest building which houses the most extensive weather recording and forecasting organization in the world, the United States Weather Bureau. Here each day to the desk of the Bureau's able chief, Commander Francis Wilton Reichelderfer, come reports from the 750 weather stations scattered throughout the nation and her territorial possessions. Wind velocities and their directions, barometric readings and complete meteorological data, high and low pressure areas are recorded hourly at each station by a staff of trained observers and sent in code to the Central Bureau in Washington. For it is from these reports, correlated at the U.S. Weather Bureau and recorded on weather maps made available to the public, that the citizen gains knowledge and news of his number one topic of conversation, the weather. He may also, if he so desires, receive by mail the government's daily weather map, as some 18,000 individuals and organizations now do. Of special interest is the state of the weather to those whose livelihood depends on rain or shine, the farmer with his crops, the ship's master at sea, the air transport pilot. But just as important are weather conditions to the owners of nearly 30 million cars which today crowd the highways. For whatever the weather, hot or cold, the complex motor of the modern automobile must function efficiently. And as each year millions of new cars are turned out by motor manufacturers, each model a machine more complex than the one before, one factor has remained essentially unchanged since the internal combustion engine was invented: the principle that the motor must be cooled. Long ago, the National Carbon Company commissioned its chemists to develop an efficient antifreeze. Kerosene, molasses, glycerin, alcohol, almost anything that would lower the freezing point of water had been used by the general public for years. Alcohol survived the longest, but National Carbon chemists hoped to find something better. Eventually, they hit upon a compound which combined ideally a low freezing and a high boiling point: ethylene glycol, the base of Prestone antifreeze. And today, Prestone antifreeze is the perfect cold weather protection. Not only because its ethylene glycol base, 97% of the solution, is highly refined and purified, but because the ingredients exclusive with Prestone antifreeze in the remaining 3%, ingredients called inhibitors by chemical engineers, have been scientifically selected to prevent many of the failures associated with ordinary antifreeze solutions. And today, the manufacture and distribution of this scientific antifreeze solution is in its own right a highly developed industry. But behind the plant at Charleston, West Virginia, is a research laboratory at Buffalo, New York, as modern as any in U.S. industry. For the makers of Prestone antifreeze consider it their job not only to supply the motorist with the best antifreeze solution that they are capable of manufacturing, but of determining through research exactly what goes on inside the cooling systems where antifreeze solutions circulate, of helping the motorist through science to get the most out of his equipment, and of continual research to keep pace with the swiftly changing tempo of motor car manufacture. Prime cause of trouble in any cooling system is rust and corrosion. And in the Buffalo laboratory, a special department has been set aside for its investigation. Here, under rigid controls, are tested the corrosive effects of a score of different solutions on the iron, copper, solder, brass, and aluminum used in motor cooling systems. But before each strip of metal is tested, it must be weighed on scales so delicate that they can detect a variation of 1/7 of an ounce. For only by the most precise measurements can the exact amount of corrosion be determined when the test has been completed. Then, after its weight has been recorded, the metal sample is placed in a bath of the solution which is under investigation for its corrosive action. Here in the laboratory corrosion test, the conditions of a motor cooling system are simulated, kept under constant surveillance day and night for at least 200 hours. Here, temperatures can be regulated by electrical control to simulate a motor running at normal heat. And because with the rapid circulation of modern cooling system pumps, a mixture of air is inevitably present in the circulation liquid, air must be blown into the solution being tested, its flow most carefully controlled. For air increases the corrosive power of water as much as 3,000%, and it is plain water that is found to be the most corrosive of all motor cooling liquids. At the conclusion of every test, each metal sample is again weighed, its weight matched against the figure recorded before the test began, to determine loss through corrosion. Tests with actual radiators prove that the rust-preventing inhibitors of the essential 3% in Prestone antifreeze reduce by 75 to 95% the corrosive action of water. National Carbon chemists note well the corrosion on the aluminum heads being tested, and from these tests have learned that only a product such as Prestone antifreeze, renewed each fall, can give full protection against rust and corrosion for a whole winter's driving. And the importance of using a rust inhibitor, such as Rustone Corrosion Preventive, in spring and summer. A source of cold weather indignation to many a motorist, and a danger to his motor as well, is the discovery that a radiator recently filled with a supposedly reliable antifreeze solution is suddenly half empty. But through experimentation with a miniature cooling system, National Carbon laboratories have long known the answer, that most radiator cooling fluids, due to the presence of air, will foam and froth when circulating. Even untreated ethylene glycol, when tested in this experiment, can be seen foaming in the cooling system, with consequent loss due to overflow. But when this same test is applied to Prestone antifreeze, a far different picture is presented. For National Carbon engineers have included in the essential 3% of Prestone antifreeze a specific inhibitor to prevent their refined ethylene glycol from foaming, to prevent loss of protection from overflow. Long standard to its buyers has been the guarantee of Prestone antifreeze, that it will not leak out of any cooling system tight enough to hold water. To back up this guarantee, National Carbon laboratories have designed an apparatus to measure leakage exactly. Behind the petcock of this apparatus is an assembly containing a split gasket cut to simulate a leak such as might occur in any water jacket. Water is heated to motor temperature by electrical coils for exact temperature control. Circulation through the system now has started, and water begins to leak out, while its rate of flow is measured drop by drop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 100 odd drops of water every minute. Then, on this same apparatus, the comparison with Prestone antifreeze. A 50% solution of Prestone antifreeze and water is prepared for testing, is subjected to precisely the same conditions of motor heat and leakage as the water. Again, the loss is measured. 1, 2, 3, 4. Only about 48 drops to the minute. Some 50% less leakage than plain water, and more than making good on the famed Prestone guarantee. For further study of leakage, National Carbon laboratories have set up equipment to approximate actual conditions of road vibration and shock. And although the best radiator built could not stand up under such treatment, each one that succumbs to the long and punishing hours of abuse adds valuable data to National Carbon's store of knowledge. Vulnerable parts of any motor cooling system are hose connections, and many a motorist, his cooling system clogged, has placed the blame squarely on the antifreeze solution in his radiator. Today in National Carbon's laboratories may be seen an entire wall covered with different types of hose connections, through which are being circulated water and various antifreeze solutions. For long ago, National Carbon engineers determined to learn all there was to know about motor hose connections. Each hose is here in constant use, day and night, for a full year before it is removed for examination. On the outside, all hose connections look much alike. But put to such a test, the real quality of each hose will soon appear. For a most significant fact to be demonstrated is that hose decay is in direct proportion to the quality of the hose, that an inferior hose will rot with any cooling fluid, cause radiator clogging. But a good grade of hose under precisely similar conditions will show no deterioration, And National Carbon men learn that Prestone antifreeze does no more harm to hose connections than water. That hose should be checked, bad hose replaced before installing antifreeze. That bad hose, not antifreeze, is the cause of most hose connection trouble. Number one purpose of an antifreeze solution or of antifreeze research is to prevent freezing water jackets, costly repairs to engine heads. In a specially constructed freezing room where temperatures can be brought down to 40 degrees below zero, National Carbon technicians must work in aviation suits. And because of danger from intense cold, no one may enter the cold room unless the technician at the control board is present to watch every action through a window of triple glass. It is here, with temperature readings from every vital part of the motor cooling system recorded at regular intervals, that freezing problems resulting from insufficient antifreeze protection are studied at first hand. But paradoxically, it is heat, not cold, that subjects an antifreeze to its most severe test. Boiling point of plain water, most common of cooling system liquids, is 212 degrees at sea level. Since motors normally operate at about 160 degrees, this provides reasonable safety for ordinary driving. But the boiling point of a 50% solution of water and alcohol, common strength for cooling system use, is only 182 degrees, perilously near the danger point of motor heat. To demonstrate this danger on a motor actually running, National Carbon engineers use 3 stock cars of standard make. Attached to radiators filled with a 50% solution of alcohol and water are extensions on the radiator overflow. Thermostats are standard equipment as installed at the factory. One gauge records the solution temperature in the cooling system. But the other is connected to one of the several points in a modern motor known to automotive engineers as hot spots. All goes well while motors are running. But when the ignition is turned off, cooling system circulation ceases. Then the needle of the dial connected to a hot spot begins to climb. For around the hot spot, far inside the water jacket, the temperature is rapidly being raised, up and up. And from the low boiling alcohol and water solution, steam is being formed, expanding at a ratio of 1,600 to 1. Steam which must escape through the radiator overflow. The steam has reached the overflow pipe, forcing out the alcohol antifreeze before it, in the common cooling system complaint called afterboil. But the boiling point of a 50% solution of water and Prestone antifreeze is 226 degrees, more than 40 degrees higher than the alcohol solution, to provide an ample margin of safety from afterboil for users of Prestone antifreeze. But the final check on all laboratory and experimental work is done on cars in actual daily use. In a series of experiments specially designed by National Carbon engineers for application to Prestone antifreeze, a selected corps of company personnel carry instruments for testing the results of their work. In a never-ending series of practical road tests in every type of car and under every condition of weather and of roads. In the New York offices of National Carbon Company, makers of Prestone antifreeze, is the General Service Department. Less than 1 complaint in 5,000 purchases are registered against Prestone antifreeze, but each one is carefully investigated and reported for the records of this department. Behind Prestone antifreeze is a field service organization covering every section of the country. The company's service engineers are able to show in most cases that the cause for complaint was not due to the failure of Prestone antifreeze. In rare cases, laboratory investigation seems advisable, and a sample of the solution is sent to Buffalo. First step in a rigid system of analysis is to place a sample in a centrifuge. Here it is rapidly whirled for 20 to 40 minutes. After all solid matter is precipitated to the bottom of the container, it is observed that rust is present in the solution. A technician immediately checks to see if the Prestone antifreeze rust inhibitor is depleted. For this purpose, it is tested on a potentiometer. The needle shows the rust inhibitor to be at full strength. As a double check, the sample is run through the corrosion test, which demonstrates that rust must have been in the radiator before Prestone antifreeze was installed. Such is the likely end of every complaint which can be put to scientific test. For a sample can of Prestone antifreeze from every new lot manufactured at the factory is tested at the laboratory before any of the lot is placed upon the market. And so, throughout the years, Prestone Antifreeze has maintained its standard of fine service. A modern plant and modern research and experimental facilities kept up to date and added to year after year with the single object of rendering service to its dealers and to the public. But most important of all its work has been the constant research to develop the inhibitors present in that essential 3% of Prestone Antifreeze. For that small percentage is as vital to Prestone Antifreeze as the elements added to high-grade steel for the special requirements of modern industry, as some 3% of alloys in gears, crankshafts, piston rods, without which the perfection of the high-speed motor would be impossible, as some 5% of nickel and chromium in dreadnought armor plate, without which a direct hit by a large caliber shell would pierce the heaviest armor of any battleship boat. And the National Carbon Company takes pride in the knowledge that Prestone Antifreeze, with its 3% of inhibitors scientifically developed, has become the leader of all antifreeze preparations in the world.
Had to choke down the rest of my burrito. Welcome, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show. I truly, truly love the tone of that film. It's using that same kind of patriotic music and that same narrator. This is the March of Time. That is used with lots of things. So it's like antifreeze is the most patriotic thing that you can do, that the democracy of the free world depends on using antifreeze. That's the same type of like, yeah, antifreeze, yeah. But March of Time, this was obviously a sponsored film by Prestone, and they worked with March of Time. And March of Time made newsreels that they distributed to show before feature films, and also in other markets they would show it, including schools. So yeah, that's and the gist of it is like through research we realized that antifreeze is important, but it's like this is a 17-minute commercial for antifreeze, and how important it is. So I collect old 16mm films and watch them and show them to folks like you. We hit a benchmark yesterday where we watched our 800th film. Antifreeze was our 806th film. We've been doing this since mid-March, and I appreciate you guys joining me along for the ride. Thomas, thank you again for your very gracious gift. It will go to very good use, as there's always something that we can throw money at AV Geeks, whether it's tape, whether it's paying for a storage facility, offsetting the cost of buying a pallet jack, all that stuff. So thank you for that. The rest of you, if you'd like to buy me some coffee, there's a place to do it. We're going to go ahead and get started by watching something that I have on film. Everything is on film, basically, but there's some things that I've already pre-recorded over the last 5 years that I've been playing back. But then also I've been pulling films from the archive, and we're premiering them, basically. I mean, certainly this is not the world premiere, but this is the new re-premiere of it. So this is, what is the title of this film? It is Shadows on Our Turning Earth. Enjoy.
I have a little shadow that goes in and out with me, and what can be the use of him is more than I can see. What can be the use of shadows? What are shadows? What can we learn from them? To make shadows, all we need is a strong light and something to get in the way of the light. While the light shines on one side of the hand, the other side is dark. Where the light is stopped so it can't reach the wall, there's a shadow. By stopping light with our hands, we can make shadows. Any object that stops light makes a shadow. But some objects, like this sheet of glass, let light shine through them. They make scarcely any shadow at all. Other objects, like this screen, let only a little light shine through. They make faint shadows. Notice the screen's faint shadow compared with the dark shadow of the hand. But objects that stop all light make a dark shadow on the side away from the light. One of the brightest lights we know is sunlight. Sometimes clouds get in the way of the sunlight, but like the screen, they let some sunlight shine through. When clouds fill the sky, they stop some of the sunlight, so we're in a large, faint shadow on a gray, cloudy day. But behind the clouds, the sun keeps shining, all day and every day. On bright sunny days, we see dark shadows. By watching shadows, we can learn about the earth we live on. How can we study shadows? Suppose we place a brick on the shadow of the mailbox at noon and see what happens. If we return after a few hours, we find that the shadow has moved away from the brick. And it's become much longer. Pictures taken at different times throughout the day can show us the different positions of the shadow. Here are the pictures. Can you see the shadow of the mailbox on the ground? Each picture has been taken at a different hour. At each hour, the shadow is at a different place. We can speed up the day's shadow movement by flipping the pictures. Look. Motion pictures taken with a special camera can also speed up a day's shadow movement. In these pictures, we can see that the shadow moves gradually from one side of the mailbox to the other, till finally it is covered by a larger shadow in the evening. Let's watch it again. Notice that while the shadow moves from one side to the other, its length also changes. Scientists tell us that shadows move because the Earth is turning. Let's find out how our turning Earth causes shadows to move. For the Earth, we'll use this globe. The Earth turns in space, so we'll make the globe turn too. For the sun, we'll use this bright light. Notice that the side of the globe away from the light is always in shadow. Here's a model of our mailbox. It's very large compared to the globe, but that's so we can see its shadow easily. As the Earth turns, the mailbox turns with it. Now let's watch the shadow of the mailbox changing. The shadow moves gradually from one side of the mailbox to the other, until finally the mailbox and its shadow move into the dark side of the Earth away from the sunlight. Let's watch it again. First, the shadow is long. It's morning. Then it gets shorter. When it's shortest, it's noon. And during the afternoon, it gets longer again. As the sun continues to shine, the mailbox and its shadow move into the Earth's shadow on the side away from the sun. As you watch the Earth turn, can you see why we have night and day? If this were your house, it would be turning with the Earth. In the morning, you move into the sunlight, and as long as you stay in the sunlight, it's daytime. In the evening, you move to the dark side away from the sunlight into the Earth's shadow. It's nighttime for you. The Earth is always turning, and on some part of it, the sun is always shining. When you move into the Earth's shadow, people who live on the other side of the Earth move into the sunlight. Nighttime for you is daytime for them. When people on the other side of the Earth move into the Earth's shadow, it's nighttime for them. At the same time, you're moving out of the shadow. It's daytime for you. It is the turning of the Earth itself that changes day into night. But while you're on the Earth's surface, turning with the Earth into and out of its shadow, an astronaut may be circling the Earth in a space capsule. His capsule circles the Earth very fast. He moves into and out of the Earth's shadow much faster than you do on the Earth's surface. For an astronaut circling the Earth, nighttime lasts less than an hour as he moves swiftly through the Earth's shadow. By studying shadows, we can learn many important things about our Earth. Shadows are made when something blocks a strong light. On sunny days, the strong light of the sun is blocked by things on Earth, making shadows on the ground. Shadows change during the day. change in length. They change their position. A full day's shadow movement looks like this. Long in the morning, short at noon, and becoming longer again until evening. Shadows change because our Earth turns. And we turn with it from day into night. Shadows help us understand the movements of the Earth we live on.
There's something very meditative about that film, very much like that, and I guess that's an oboe maybe in the background. And the title is it's almost like a giallo, shadows on our turning Earth. It's this kind of meandering thing, but I like it. I had mentioned yesterday we watched Balance. It was either yesterday or the day before we watched Balance Beams for Girls, and I was talking about how there were films that were PE films, but they were PE films, basketball for girls, basketball for boys. And I mentioned that there was an Archery for Girls, Cornet made, which I have raw elements for, but I haven't found the actual print, and I hope to find it at some point because it looks really great. But here's Archery Fundamentals, and this is non-gender specific. So this is Film Associates that did this, not Cornet. So they were getting the idea that they didn't have to make two separate films to talk about Archery Fundamentals. So here we go. Archery Fundamentals. Enjoy.
For hundreds of years, the bow and arrow was the most powerful weapon known to man. Although it is no longer needed for survival, archery has become a very popular sport. With the development of new materials came new designs for bows and arrows. Today's working recurve bow is unsurpassed for power and accuracy. There are three parts to a bow: handle, upper limb, and lower limb. At the end of each limb, there is a nock to hold the string. At the center of the string is a reinforced section called the serving. This is where the arrow fits onto the string. The principal parts of an arrow are the shaft, the nock, fletching, and pile. A shooting glove or a simple shooting tab will protect the fingers and will allow a smooth release of the string. An arm guard should always be used to protect the arm from the string. One way to select the proper length of arrow is to measure the distance from the armpit to the second joint of the index finger. This student should use an arrow 28 inches long. The important factor in choosing a bow is its weight. That means the weight required to pull it back the full length of the arrow. The worst single mistake made by beginning archers is that of choosing bows too strong for them. It is important that you have a bow which you can draw and hold comfortably even after an hour or two of shooting. After selecting the proper bow and arrow length, always use the same ones. You must be consistent before you can expect accuracy. Here is the proper way to brace a bow. Turn the face away for protection. The bow does not touch the ground. Press with the heel of the hand and slip the string into place. Then immediately twist the bow so that the string is toward you, and check to see that the string is properly in both grooves, at both ends. Now straddle the firing line and face 90 degrees away from the target. The shoulders should be lined up straight with the target. The feet should be comfortably separated and approximately parallel. The weight should be firmly on both feet. The arrow is placed on a shelf which is built into most bows. Be sure that the cock feather points away from the bow. Most arrows have a ridge behind the cock feather that you can feel with your thumb. With a little practice, it will become a natural habit to take an arrow, twist it until you feel the ridge, and place it on the string without even thinking about it. The string is held near the ends of the first 3 fingers. The string should fit tightly enough in the nock so that the arrow does not have to be held in place. It merely rests lightly between the fingers. The bow is raised and drawn at the same time. The back remains straight. The bow arm is slightly bent to clear a path for the string. The bow is held loosely with the weight on the heel of the hand. The back of the arrow hand should be flat, and the hand and the forearm should fall in a straight line with the arrow. In this position, the shoulder muscles, not the arm muscles, hold the weight of the bow. The most important rule in becoming a skilled archer is consistency. And the most important factor for consistency is the point on the face to which the arrow is drawn. This is called the anchor point. Many fine target archers use this anchor point. The tip of the forefinger touches the corner of the mouth, and the thumb is locked under the chin. Others hold the forefinger under the chin so that the string crosses the corner of the mouth. Still others line up the string on the center of the nose and chin. A little experimenting will tell which anchor point is most natural for you. The important thing is that you use the same one every time. To release the arrow, simply relax the fingers and let the string slip off. Except for the 3 fingers that release the string, every part of the body should be held perfectly still until the arrow is well on its way. At the same time, the body should be relaxed, never tense. There are several ways to aim at a target. One is the point of aim method. If you line up the tip of the arrow on the center of the target, you will probably miss the target completely. So the trick is to find the right point of elevation to sight on so that the arrow will hit the bullseye. Let's suppose that we have a target 30 yards away and aim point blank at the center of the target. If the arrow passes over the target this high, then our point of aim should be lowered the same distance. We'll mark the new point of aim with a tennis ball. Bullseye. So we have found the proper point of aim for this distance. Now let's move back to 60 yards. And again aim point blank. If the arrow falls short, we will raise our point of aim. Although the point of aim is now above the target, the arrow drops enough at this distance to hit the mark. Keep in mind that the points of aim we have found are accurate only for this archer, this bow, and this arrow. Each person should find his own point of aim for each distance. Most target archers have sights on their bows. The dot is always lined up on the center of the target. As the correct setting is found for each distance, it can be marked on the bow. Of course, in field archery, you won't always know the distance to the... A few safety rules are absolutely essential. Never attempt to shoot a damaged bow or arrow. Never shoot straight up. Use an adequate backstop. When in a group, wait until everyone has finished shooting before going forward to retrieve the arrows. Never, under any circumstances, point a drawn bow at another person. Remember that the bow and arrow has always been a very deadly weapon. With these safety rules in mind, and with a consistent shooting method, you will be ready to try new games and new targets. Archery can be a source of many hours of golden pleasure.
So, I have to thread a film. I kind of got caught up in something, and so I'm threading the film on the telecine, which is this expensive German device that I bought. That there's a camera in here. There's a light source. That's the exciter bulb, which plays back optical 16mm film sound. Then in here is LEDs that pulse in conjunction to when there's a sprocket, so that you get this pulsing for every frame. Yeah, 60 grand. That's how much I paid for it a couple of years ago. Well, several years ago at this point, close to probably 11 years ago. Finally paid it off. All right. This next film, I was going to show you another film called Birthday for Bird, but it is tails out, which means that I would have to rewind it, and I'll work on that as we're watching this film. This film is called The Land of Real Believe, and I don't know a whole lot about it, except that it involves a blind girl. So let's watch this one together and figure out what's going on.
One time, in the land of make-believe, where the sun never stopped shining, there lived a beautiful princess. That's the way every good story should begin. It must begin like this. In a land of darkness, where the sun never shone, there lived a little girl who was Mary. She lived in a small world of her own, limited by what she could hear and feel. Those who loved her told her it had not always been this way, that once, when she was very small, she had been able to see. Mary could not remember what the world of sight was like. But, thought Mary, there are lots of good things in my world, too. The smell of the flowers, the touch of a leaf, the sound of the wind. Yes, and there was the reassuring voice of the nurse, who told her, "It won't be long, Mary. I believe this time your eyes will be better, and you'll be able to see again." And when the nurse was gone, Mary would repeat these words to her doll. And if she was quite sure that no one was around to overhear, she would tell her doll about her dream. A dream of what that other world was really like. A waterfall was like friendly thunder that never stops. And tiger lilies had fierce faces and long tongues. But a butterfly was a little more difficult to describe. Other things, however, were easier to imagine. Violets were sweet and tiny, and you put them in a shining bowl. And roses, their fragrance was heavenly. Roses were like, well, they were like summertime. And autumn, what did it look like? Well, anyone with any imagination would know that autumn must look like the taste of a walnut just plucked from a tree. Autumn must look like the smell of late corn. Autumn must look like the sound of brittle leaves that crunch underfoot as you walk through a field. Autumn must look like the chill of the air that comes at sunset. Winter? Oh, it's a wonderful time. Snow like frozen velvet. Winter is the sound of trees creaking in the wind, like the bones of an old witch. And in the winter, something happens to sounds. The voice of Mary's little sister becomes sharper and merrier, and everyone knows it's the time for sleds and skis and sliding downhill. And fighting deadly battles in the snow. And Mary imagined what it would be like to build a snowman with shining eyes of coal. And like a soldier, he would stand guard outside the house forever. Or, well, at least until the first spring thaw. Yes, Mary could imagine winter well in make-believe. But better than most, she knew the song it sang to say goodbye. Now Now, spring, Mary told her doll, is probably the most wonderful of all the seasons. Spring was a new beginning, a time when everything began to grow out of the dark earth. And Mary wished with all her heart that she could come out of the darkness too. And then, one day, her friendly nurse said, "Mary, open your eyes." And so what had been make-believe became real. Mary could not wait to see all that she had dreamed about. Tiger lilies weren't fierce at all. They were lovely. The world was full of beautiful things. Of course, some things didn't look as she had thought of them in make-believe at all. But then, if you had to imagine a sheep, make it up out of your own mind, what would your sheep look like? Or, for that matter, a baby lamb. So many things probably wouldn't look like they really are at all. Think, for a moment, as Mary had done for such a long time, of a water lily. Have you ever really seen a water lily? There are so many things around us that we who can see never see. To see, really see, you must look around you at all things and regard each of them as a miracle. For in truth, that is what all earth, all life is. To Mary, the tiniest duckling was such a miracle. And so was a bird, a honking goose, and cackling chickens and quacking ducks. Of course, some miracles were very odd-looking ones indeed, like Billy Goat, Mother Goat, and Baby Goat. And so Mary traveled through her new world on a wonderful voyage of discovery. And what stalwart explorer, plunging deep into darkest Africa, ever come upon a more amazing sight than this? Or brought back a more exciting trophy than a rose? Thus, Mary's story ends as all good stories should end. She lived happily ever after. But my story and your story may not begin until that day when we really open our eyes and truly see the wonderful world around us, the land of real belief.
That was kind of messed up. I thought it was going to turn into a an ad for March of Dimes, or something about kids getting measles and getting blind, or scarlet fever or something. But no, this was a trying to get people to appreciate the nature around them. And this came out in 1951. My database had it wrong. It was 1961. But let's see. I'm not sure where I got this information from. But I did some research, and it does show up in Educational Screen. And the gist of it isn't about the fact that she's blind and gets her sight back, because obviously they don't care. You just say, oh, you have your sight back. But it's more about appreciating the nature around you, the wonderful glory, blah, blah, blah. All right. This next film is about teenagers. It's made for teenagers and young adults. And this one, I think, is about trying to pressure somebody into having sex. And then Beau Bridges has a cup of coffee and talks to us about what we just saw. So, are we still going to the movies?
This is fantastic.
It's nicer over there, I think.
It really is. Glad that we came here.
Okay, come on down.
Okay. I'll go first.
Take it easy.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah.
I gotta get it. Okay?
Yes. Oh.
What do you think?
Oh, I think it's great.
How's this?
This is fine. You want some help?
I think I got it.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, that's good.
It's beautiful. It'd be nice to have a fire.
I don't think we're supposed to. You look really nice.
I'm starved, aren't you? Jack, don't.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
You don't love me anymore, huh?
Don't be funny.
Well, then come on.
Jack, don't I mean it?
Hey, what's eating you?
Nothing. I'd like to have a picnic, that's all.
Isn't that what we're doing?
You know what I mean.
No, I don't.
Well, I just thought it would be nice to have a picnic without you moving on me like that.
I didn't move on you.
Come on. A nice secluded place. A blanket. Telling me how nice I look. I've seen the same movies you have. Let me see. There's tuna fish, and there's a bologna. What kind do you want, Jack?
I don't care.
Come on, Jack.
Well, what if I did move on you? So what?
It's just that it didn't... I don't know, I thought we were going to have a picnic. It's so beautiful. I thought we'd sit and eat and talk and have fun, you know?
Sure, so did I.
Let's do it, okay?
Okay.
Is it that bad?
No, it's all right. I'm just not very hungry. Where are the Cokes?
We left them in the van. I'll go get them.
It's okay. I really don't want any.
Listen, I'm sorry I made you mad. I really didn't mean to.
I'm not mad. Should have brought some beer. Picnics aren't any good without beer.
Why didn't you?
Because I knew you'd bitch if I did.
Wouldn't? Jack, come on. Come on. You know, you're just like my little brother. When he doesn't get what he wants, he pouts. Let's sit down, okay?
This picnic has sure turned out great, hasn't it?
I know. I'm sorry.
So am I. We haven't had much fun lately.
I know.
I don't know what's wrong with you.
Me?
Yeah, with you. You're the one who's changed. I mean, for 6 months, things were really going good. You know, we were getting it on and everything, and... Well, I haven't taken out another girl in months. But now, you make me feel uncomfortable even when I touch you. Or anything, like it was wrong.
I didn't mean it was wrong. I just said we don't always have to end up making out, that's all.
You never used to complain. Maybe I don't remember too well, but I thought we were in love.
I do love you. But, well, sometimes you treat me like sex was the whole point of everything. I mean, we could do other things, too.
Come on, we do other things. I don't believe you, Dana. I mean, half the guys I know are really making it with the girls they're with. We just...
Oh. Do you compare notes?
That's not what I mean.
Then what do you mean?
I mean, you can't say that we're only into sex when we don't really make it.
Well, it must be really rough on you, not having anything to report when you talk to the guys.
Oh, you're great at changing the subject. Anyway, I suppose you don't talk things over with your friends?
No. At least not the way you talk about it with the guys. Like it was all some kind of a game. And the idea is to rack up as many points as you can.
Well, right now I'm beginning to think that Eddie was right.
About what?
He just said you were very uptight.
You want to know what Sandy Corman said about you? That you have a one-track mind.
Okay, let's go.
Where?
Home.
You're really sore, aren't you?
Well, what do you think?
I think I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
The way you're acting proves I'm right. You're sore because you couldn't just turn me on like some kind of machine.
Sure, Dana. Look, I'll tell you what. We'll make up some rules and some regulations. And whenever we meet, we'll talk about heavy things like religion and philosophy. And then, when you feel more like a person, maybe we can hold hands a while, okay? Now get off the blanket, will you?
Are we still going to the movies tonight?
I don't know.
Well, are we going to do anything anymore?
I don't know. Will you get off the blanket, please?
A quarrel between a girl and boy one afternoon in the park becomes the turning point in their relationship, maybe even the end of it. There are any number of ways you might think about such a confrontation. We hope the film would start you thinking about what boys usually expect from girls and what girls usually expect from boys, and how and why those expectations can be so different. What do Dana and Jack expect from each other that they are not getting? Are the cliches generally true? Do most boys' expectations come from seeing it all as kind of a game with making out the whole point of the relationship? Does a girl usually expect something else? A more lasting commitment? Do girls encourage expectations in boys that they don't intend to fulfill? Now, Dana believes that boys compare notes on their conquests. The implication is that they encourage each other to regard girls as objects to be pursued, as things rather than persons. Is that really how boys talk with one another? What is the difference between the way boys talk about girls and girls talk about boys? Do girls also use boys as objects? Remember Jack's outrage at the very suggestion he might be doing anything wrong or insensitive? It suggests that he regards his own behavior towards Dana as perfectly normal and natural. Well, is it natural for boys to make out at every opportunity? If the girl objects, does that mean she's uptight, maybe neurotic, not as feminine as she ought to be? A lot of people seem to assume that the difference between what boys and girls expect from each other are natural and inevitable, rooted in biological differences. Do you agree with that? Or do we in fact learn how to behave? I mean, is there a lot of role-playing in it? Are boys and girls taught by movies, magazines, television, friends, and the adults they look up to that they should behave in certain ways? What does Dana expect that Jack isn't giving? She seems to be afraid of continuing as before with him and afraid of hurting or even losing him if she changes. What creates those fears? When Dana compares Jack to her kid brother, who pouts when he doesn't get his way, Jack is resentful. Would most guys react that way? Why does it make him so sore? because it's unfair? Because there's truth in it? Or does Dana mean it to be a heavy put-down to his sense of masculinity? Suppose Jack and Dana thought it over and decided to really try and meet each other's expectations. How might that change their relationship?
So sometimes Beau Bridges will sit there and he'll like sit next to a coffee table and he'll reach down and get a cup of coffee and just kind of drink. These are pretty great. There's a whole series of these, and they're all kind of explorations of these things that young adults encounter, and then there's just kind of talks about it. Let's talk about our feelings. Let's talk about how we feel about it, the situation. So there's a pretty good one. And there'll be more of those. I'll bring out more of those as we move along, because they're pretty great. Thanks everybody for tuning in today. I was going to tell a story about archery, but then I got caught up trying to thread the projector or thread the telecine. When they say don't shoot in the air, well, there was one summer where the neighborhood kids and we were shooting arrows into the air and then running based on where we thought the arrow was going to fall to be away from it. And the person, when the arrow landed, whoever was closest to the arrow won. And consequently, what would happen is if you shoot in the air, no matter where you run, if you keep an eye on it, it looks like it's going to fall on you. So we would always run under the carport. And, you know, it would land wherever. But at one point, it actually hit the roof of the carport. So this is all before the internet. This is recklessness of really, really bored 8th graders, 9th graders, 8th graders, I think. So there's a cautionary tale there. The other thing is it's great to read your comments about how the guy in that last movie was just a douche. That's the one thing I feel like whenever I see films where guys are trying to coerce girls into having sex. It is the cheesiest. There's that film Saying No that I think I showed some time ago, which is basically for girls on how to say no. And just the lines that come out of that guy's mouth are just, you're like, really? Oh my God, that worked? Ugh. So it was great to see everybody respond. And it's great to see you guys every day. I very much appreciate our time together. If you liked what you saw, there's ways that you can reward us. One is by hitting like. I think on Twitch, if you follow us, at some point we get some sort of incentive. And I don't know what that means. I don't know. But, you know, hitting like and subscribe, that helps somewhere down the road. Also, you can buy us coffee. Coffee is the one thing that gets our brains percolating. So that's something you can do. Or visit avgeeks.com, see other things that we've done. We have DVDs for sale, etc. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. As the inside of the can says, please rewind and love each other. Which is interesting because there's also cans that say, please do not rewind. But they don't say hate each other. So, yeah, who knows? Anyways, here's our new countdown screen that I got from a Films Incorporated thing. So, everybody have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you again tomorrow, Friday. Everybody take care.